Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Courtney, and today we are going to be doing my yearly book haul. I'm not really great about keeping up on book hauls, and so somewhere along the way I got it in my head that I was like, hey, I'll just do a haul at the end of the year discussing all the books that I read. And that was not the brightest idea because now I have this giant stack behind me. Yeah, we have to go through them and it's gonna take a while. But first, of course, there are the normal disclaimers. I am in a place of privilege where I can afford to buy these books. My parents are currently supporting me and I am very lucky to receive that support, and not everybody obviously on YouTube or in life is in that place where they can do that. And here's the depressing caveat. I do not have many friends. I do not go out and do things that often. I do not go out to eat. I do not go out to the movies. I don't do a lot of stuff. And I don't have a lot of people to do stuff with. I think most of the world is a lot luckier than me in some respects because they have the friends and the family that will go and do things with. And unfortunately, to do a lot of things, you have to pay money. But that is all to say, this is my life. Reading is my life. I spend all of my money on books. My money doesn't really go to much else. This has been a weird year in general, reading-wise, where I am at in my life-wise. So there has been a lot of reading, but there's also been not a lot of reading because of like depression and, you know, just a lot of things. And I have been unemployed. I've had the time to read and enjoy these books and to buy them, which again, not everybody has that to do. And at the end of this year, in August, September, I have finally gotten employment and I'm working at a bookstore, so I get a big discount. That only accounts for a part of my book buying habits, but let's move on from the disclaimers. They are like necessary because of the internet, but they're also not really necessary. You get it. Or if you don't, you're just gonna badmouth me in the comments anyway, so it's fine. But anyway, let's go over all the books that I bought in 2022. When I counted the books, it was a little over 60, but that was not including manga, which after watching TikTok and manga TikTok, I've gotten back into a manga buying phase. I've been very selective of the series that I've bought up till now, but yes, I'm not crazy with it, but I have gotten back into a little bit more of manga buying. So when I set out to do this end of the year thing, I thought of like making stats for it, discussing my book buying habits, how much I buy per month. I feel like I should keep track of it more, figure out how much I'm saving with like my discounts, figure how much the money has been received from birthday gifts and stuff like that. I want to do a lot of more accounting in the future with this just to track a little bit more, just to understand my buying. But almost all of these books are books that I've bought throughout the year and have been reading. I personally like to have a small TBR and read what I buy almost directly, and I've been really good about keeping on top of that TBR until basically the end of this year. And that kind of happens every year. It kind of piles up in the end of the year phase. A lot of my book buying has also gone into these reading projects that I've been doing on my channel. Reading banned books, reading the seasonal reading vlog that I just did, reading only queer sports books for June. I don't know if this is really indicative of what I naturally like reach for as a buyer. So that's all to say is that I'm not going to do stats because my stats will be in the end of the year stats because, like I said, these are the books that I was reading throughout the year. But yes, next year I do plan on keeping track of it because I want to know how much I buy month by month, if I buy more in certain months, and again, how I'm using my money and all of that. I should also mention that I have this in order of when I bought it, so all of these books are going to be in order. So first off, we have Kiki's Delivery Service. This apparently is the first book I bought this year. I don't remember it being the first book I bought, but apparently it was. And this is a children's story, which is the inspiration for the Kiki's Delivery Service movie. I enjoyed this. I've already read it. After that, I picked up Adulthood Rights by Octavia Butler. Last year, I did a reading vlog where I was reading only Octavia Butler books for a certain period of time, or just like reading her as an author. And so this is a continuation of the Ex on Genesis series. I read Dawn, so naturally I had to read this. And then I also had to buy Imago, which is the final book, and of course I've already read this. Alien First Encounter Space Story. End of last year, beginning of this year, I read Gideon the Ninth, and so I also picked up Harrow the Ninth. I wish I had bought these in hardcovers because now I'm obsessed with the series, but it's fine. I have the paperback. Harrow the Ninth is another sci-fi story, adult sci-fi series. Dark, it's gothic, it's a lot of fun, and it's confusing as hell, and I want to reread it because I loved it. We also have Oaths of Legacy. This is the second book in the Bonds of Brass series. This is a sci-fi trilogy. It didn't quite work for me. This is a book that I will definitely be unhauling in the future. I've technically already unhauled it in my unhaul video, but I'm putting this on my Pango at the beginning of next year because it did not work for me as a series. Next we have A Psalm for the Wild Built by Becky Chambers. I thought I bought this last year, but apparently I bought it this year and read it at the beginning of this year. Becky Chambers is one of my favorite sci-fi authors. This is a utopian, distant future society. It's hopeful, it's a cozy almost story, and it's about a young monk who decides to become a tea service person, which means they travel around giving tea to people and listening to their problems. I read this book and the second book, which you will see later in this haul video, but yes, I love this. Next we have Middle Game by Seanan McGuire. I vaguely, was it the paperback had just come out, so I saw the hardcover and bought it, or I was sad that the paperback was out and I wanted it in hardcover, so I bought it online in hardcover. I don't know, it was one of that kind of stories. The end of hardcovers is normally what gets me to buy the book, because when I see something in hardcover that I don't normally see, I end up buying it, but also me wanting a book and seeing it in paperback inspires me to go online and order it because, again, I want it in the hardcover. But this is an adult paranormal fantasy, literary fantasy. It's about two twins, Roger and Dodger, who have been separated and experimented on to basically be super smart and actually possibly have superpowers. I loved this. I had a very fun experience of reading this around New York as I listened to it via audiobook, but I really liked this. Definitely a great read. Another Seanan McGuire book, we have Where the Drowned Girls Go. This is part of the Every Heart a Doorway series, which is a fantasy novella series about children who return from portal worlds. Next we have Stamped by Jason Reynolds and Ibram X. Kendi, and this is a young adult novel about racism, anti-racism, and like the history of racism and slavery, again made for a young adult reader. In the same realm, we also have Everything You Wanted to Know About Indians But Were Scared to Ask by Anton Treyer. Again, this is a nonfiction about Native Americans, and it's aimed at a young adult reader. I also have Foundryside by Robert Jackson Bennett. This is the first book in an adult trilogy. I just finished the third one literally last night. This is a fantasy world that's set in almost like a fantasy Milan, Florence type setting with different merchant houses, and there's this magic system called scriving, which basically you can imbue different objects with different abilities. It has a sapphic main character and sapphic love story. I'm still mulling my thoughts over this series as I just finished the last book. Yeah, this was a good one. And then after that, I bought The Bear and the Nightingale, The Girl in the Tower, and The Winter of the Witch, all by Catherine Arden, and these are the UK covers. I want to say in like March or April, I distinctly remember buying these from Waterstones because I wanted these covers. I just liked them better than the US covers, and with that order I also bought some other books that you will see coming up next. So yes, in that Waterstone order, I originally was going to Waterstone to get Heartstopper Volume 4. I originally bought the UK edition, so the US editions don't align correctly, so now I have to buy them from the UK. And so while I was making that, you know, expensive shipping price, I decided to get other books. So I got the Winter of the Witch series and Heartstopper Volume 4 this winter. This was around the time that the TV series had just come out and I was just watching it, which kind of put a fire under my butt to get the fourth volume and to get this winter. Nick and Charlie was out of stock, so I didn't get that until later when I did another Waterstones order. But yeah, my buying habits are very interesting to me, just the way I go about things. I also bought The Space Between Worlds by Micaiah Johnson. I just don't like the US cover for this. I don't think it's as beautiful as this one. I just really like this cover. And so again, I was making this order, so I waited and got it then. And I've since read this, and it is a sci-fi story set in a world where there are parallel worlds to ours that some people are able to traverse because they've been killed off in those said worlds. And our main character has been killed off in almost all of the worlds, and so she is like a very sought after traveler for different companies because she is able to go to so many places. Next I have Shorefall, which is the second book in the Robert Jackson Bennett Foundryside series. I didn't love this one as quite as much as the first one, and I'm pretty sure I have a video explaining why, either in a wrap-up or something. But yes, second in the series. I was doing good at continuing series that I had started. And then next, this would have been May coming right up into June because this was me preparing for my reading vlog, and that would be Icebreakers. This is a hockey sports queer story about a young man who is in college. And again, I have a whole reading vlog talking about all of these books, so definitely you should should go over there and see my thoughts and opinions. For that vlog, I also bought Spinning, which is a memoir about Tillie Walden. Tillie Walden is one of my favorite graphic novelists, even though I haven't read all of her stuff yet, but I really enjoyed this. It's all about her junior career as a ice skater. Just the way that she captures loneliness is so beautiful. And let's go over the rest of the books that I bought for that vlog. I have Darius the Great is Not Okay, young adult coming of age, Love and Pom-Poms, a young adult graphic novel about cheerleading, The Breakaways, a young adult / middle grade graphic novel about soccer, Anna on the Edge, a middle grade story about an ice skater, Disarm and Striking Distance, which are kind of in the same series as Fence. I have strong opinions about both of these. May the Best Man Win by Zara Eller, which is a football cheerleading novel, another novel that I recently unhauled. And then She Drives Me Crazy, which is a basketball / cheerleader, young adult, coming of age, rom-com type story. So I'm pretty sure my mom visited me at either the end of May or beginning of June, sometime in June, because I know I got all of these books when I was with my mom when we went on a little book shopping little trip when I was still living in New York. So I have Love After the End, which is a short story indigenous anthology, all queer sci-fi fantasy dystopian future type stories. I also bought When the Tiger Comes Down the Mountain and Empress and Salt and Fortune by Nhi Vo. These are two little short novellas in a series all about this person that goes around, learns like different stories from different people. The first one is the main character going to this empress and figuring out what happened to her before she's kind of like dethroned, kind of a thing. And then this one is they get stuck in a snowstorm with this group of tigers and they're trying to talk their way out of getting eaten, and they're like learning this tiger's story. This is a really fantastic series. Really enjoyed this. I don't know when I bought this, but I know I bought this year. So this is How Long Till Black Future Month, and this is another short story anthology. I know I bought this in New York. I know I bought it before I left, but I'm not sure the exact month I bought it. I know which Barnes & Noble I bought this in New York. It's the one down at the end of Brooklyn, and I was so excited to see this in stores because I don't see it a lot in stores, and I loved M.K. Jemison's work, so I want to read her short stories as well. And at that time, I also bought The Passing Playbook. I'm not sure if this was included in my sports vlog or if I was just continuing on with that journey, but this is a queer trans story about a soccer player, young adult. So now we are definitely getting into the end of June, beginning of July books that I bought. So we have Fevered Star by Rebecca Roanhorse. I'm not sure when this came out. I believe it came out in 2022, but I don't think I bought it right away. I also bought Vows of Empire, which I'm pretty sure I had to buy this online because I could not find it in stores, but this is by Emily Skrensky, final book in that series. So even though I didn't like that series, at least I finished it out. And I believe that book did come out at the end of June. So yeah, this would have been the end of June, beginning of July. I also got All Out by Sandra Mitchell, which is a part of a short story anthology. And on the back of this says The Last Bookstore, so that means I bought it at The Last Bookstore in LA. This would have been the middle of July because my cousins were out from Michigan and visiting us, and I was also visiting California because, again, I still was living in New York, but I came out for July and we ended up going to The Last Bookstore as a fun place to show my cousin, and so yes, I bought that there. And that was a queer short story young adult anthology. At some point, not at The Last Bookstore, but at some point when you get the chance. And this is a coming of age young adult queer story about a group of teens that are having all kinds of family things going on, and at some point during all of that they decide to just run away to Toronto Pride, I believe. We also have Akata Woman, which is a young adult fantasy series, and it's basically about a secret magic world society that has different magical abilities, but it's all based in like Nigerian folklore and culture. I really like this series. This wasn't my favorite in the series, but I still really enjoy this series. We also have Iron Widow by Jianjie Zhao. I remember I saw this in hardcover and wanted to get it before it turned into a paperback. And then we also have The Lesbian's Guide to Catholic School by Serena Reyes, and this was continuing on with my LGBT journey that summer. I was just having so much fun reading these kind of coming of age LGBT stories, so I just kept buying them and reading them. Then at some point I also bought Fence, the 5th graphic novel. I had this like on my list of books coming out and I like totally forgot when it came out. I obviously had to buy it. I haven't read this one. This is one of the ones that I haven't read. So far, all of the books I have read. I read Fence Striking Distance, I think that's the first one. I haven't read Disarmed. I don't plan to now because I was so disappointed by Striking Distance, but this is the one that I haven't read yet, mostly because I feel like I have to reread the series to read this one, and I was, again, very disappointed by the novelizations of the stories that it just kind of turned me off a little bit, so I just have to sit down and reread these to read this. So we are now getting into the point where I was moving back home or had just moved back home after my lease was out in August. I'm not sure exactly what book it was that was the first book I bought when I finally moved back home, but in that time frame I read Ace of Spades. This is a young adult psychological mystery thriller type story. I also bought and read The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea by Axio. This is one that unfortunately didn't really do much for me. It's a fantasy, almost Spirited Away story. I don't mean Spirited Away as in the movie, which a lot of people are comparing it to, but there is actually like a word, you know, or an act called spiriting away, which basically means like a person that gets taken away to like the godly world or like ghosty realm. But yeah, a lot of great ideas, a lot of great characters and stuff in here, but it didn't really work for me. And I also bought and read All Boys Aren't Blue by George M. Johnson. This is a memoir discussing their young adult life, and this is obviously a queer memoir. I also read A Prayer for the Crown Shy by Becky Chambers. This would have been September, August. It feels like a while ago that I read this, to be honest. But yes, this is the second and final book in that duology. Really loved it. And then around that time I also bought Out There, which is the third and final book in that anthology queer young adult series. Again, more short stories by some of the same and different authors, and this is going to be fantasy sci-fi stuff, and it's all going to be like set in the future, so I'm very intrigued if I will like this better than the first two. I liked the first one a little bit better. It's historical, and I think that's why I liked some of the stories in there a lot more, but the middle one was all present stories and that really didn't do it for me, so I'm intrigued to see if this will be more my style because it's going to be all like sci-fi-ish stories. And now I know we're getting into September because I have Melissa by Alex Gito and Genderqueer, which I both read for my band book week along with All Boys Aren't Blue. Melissa is about a young boy named George who fantasizes about being Charlotte in the upcoming school play Charlotte's Web, and through that kind of journey they discover that they really want to be a girl. She wants to dress up, she has a different name for herself in her head, and it's about kind of understanding her feelings and explaining it to the world around her. And then Genderqueer is a adult graphic novel memoir about Maya Kobabe's gender and sexual journey. Now we're getting into my second Waterstone purchase. I finally got Nick and Charlie, and then I also got the Assassin's Apprentice series by Robin Hobb. I have the Assassin's Apprentice, which I have read, and then Assassin's Quest and Royal Assassin, which I have not. The next book, this would have come out in October, I believe, so I think I bought it October, November, and that was Nona the Ninth, which is the third book in the Gideon the Ninth, the Locked Tomb series. And then that was around the time that I was getting ready to start my seasonal reading vlog, so I bought Villette. I've read half of this, a little less than half of this now, and this is by Charlotte Bronte, and it's like a gothic literary novel. And then I also bought Babel. I did not end up reading this for this vlog because of reasons, but I have this one. But for that vlog I ended up buying and reading Legends and Lattes, which is a cozy fantasy story. If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio, which is a mystery thriller literary story about a Shakespeare troupe. The Atlas Six, which is a dark academia fantasy, paranormal fantasy story about 6 individuals that are allowed into the Library of Alexandria, but one of them is not going to make it, basically, and get to join the secret society. I have The Witch Boy, which is a young adult graphic novel about a family of witches and shapeshifters, where boys are shapeshifters, women are witches, and this young boy, Aster, only wants to be a witch because that's where his powers lie. And around that time I also bought and read Grey Warren. I actually think I read this before I started that reading vlog, but apparently I bought it after these books came out, which makes sense because this book came out at the end of October and it was the last book I read before I started that reading vlog, I believe. It's hard because I would have read Nona around the same time too. But this is the third and final book in the Dreamer trilogy, which is a spin-off of the Raven Boys. So young adult, new adult, kind of book series, paranormal fantasy series about Ronan Lynch from The Raven Boys. Ronan Lynch has my whole heart. I really enjoyed this. And now we are getting into the books that I've bought in the last month or so for various reasons. Some because I cannot stop myself, and others for reading vlog purposes. So I have Bloodmarked, which is the second book in the Legendborn series. Want to read this desperately before the end of the year, but I don't know if I'll get there. But this came out in November, I believe. Sea Sparrow, which is by Kristin Cashore, a part of the Graceling Realms series. I love these new covers. I desperately want the old books in these covers too to match. I wish they would come in hardcover so they could all match in hardcover and be so gorgeous, but I don't know if that'll ever happen. But this is the 5th book in Kristin Cashore's series of the Graceling Realm. She is finally expanding it. I think there might be another book after this that she's planning, but I don't know. And then we have How to Excavate a Heart by Jake Maya Arlo. This is a Jewish holiday romance book, which I'm reading for an upcoming vlog, along with Kiss Her Once for Me, which I literally read the first 20 pages of. This is by Alan Corcoran, and I will say the first 20 pages, I'm loving it. I am really excited to continue reading that one. And then finally, the final book I bought this year, we have Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. The second book is coming out soon. My bookstore had this in hardcover and I was so excited to see it because it's been in paperback for a very long time, and I knew I just had to snap this up as a hardcover because I've been waiting to buy this online because I wanted the hardcover. I just couldn't resist it when I saw it in the store, and so this is going to be one of the first things that I read next year, hopefully. So yes, those are all the books that I bought this year, and of those books, I have not read these, and I have not read these. And I also have not read this. This is the earliest book that I've bought that I haven't read yet. I do have a couple books from earlier purchases, like in 2021 and earlier, that I have not read or not finished. But really, I only have 3 or 4 books from 2021 or earlier that I have not read. So this is the last book that I haven't read that I bought within this year. And I bought it in mid to late 2022. So I think that's pretty good. I'm keeping up with what I buy, which again, that's my mode of reading books. I like to read and buy at the same time. Read one at a time, buy one at a time. It just makes me happy that way. But yes, we're not done yet because it's manga time. So this is not in order, but we're just gonna go through it as I can pick up the books. So the first series that I am buying and collecting is Kami-sama Kiss. I've read this years ago. I watched the anime when it came out years ago, and I kind of was sad when it was starting to go out of stock and be hard to find. And when it was completely out of stock, I just had a lot of regrets for not buying this series. It's a shoujo fantasy series. It's one of my all-time favorites. I just love the series. I love the characters. And so this time around, I am buying them. So far I have volumes 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 15 that I have not read and that I bought this year. I lied when I said that the Priory of the Orange Tree was the last buy of the year for me. The last buy of the year was the rest of this series. They are temporarily out of stock, but you can still purchase them on book websites and they will slowly come to you over the months. The only one that's out of stock completely that I have not been able to buy online is volume 21 for some reason, or 20, but it's available on Amazon, so I am gonna buy it at some point. But yes, I'm collecting Kami-sama Kiss. I wanted to read up to like volume 10, I think I said, by the end of this year, but I think I might save this for January or just wait until I get the entire series and read it, because it will be a reread for me. I have read this series multiple times. I was up to date on it at one point in my life, so I kind of want to get back into it when I can just binge it. And the other series I decided I was going to continue and buy this year is Haikyuu. Haikyuu just finished, was it this year? I think the last volume of Haikyuu came out this year, and it's a series I love the anime for. I've read a little bit of the manga, but I honestly am an anime watcher for this series, and I've been slowly buying the series and reading it. I think I have to read 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, but this is a 45 volume series. So this is going to be a slow process of reading and collecting, especially since Kami-sama Kiss is my priority right now. So the next manga series is going to be my impulse buy of the year. I had seen it in the store, I had read it online just that week or a week before, and I was like, I really like this series. Yes, I love the series. It's up there in some of my top favorite series. And so when my store was having a buy one get one free manga deal, I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna purchase the entire series even though I've only molded over for a week. And that's Apothecary Diaries. This is a shonen historical series, but it reads very shoujo. Actually, it might be a seinen series. I'm not sure now. I impulsively bought this and I hadn't even molded over the series for that long, which is not like me at all. But yeah, I think the anime is coming out for this soon-ish, but I really love it and I'm going to reread it and enjoy it again. Getting into some of my standard purchases, I have volume 46 and 47 of Skippy. I've read 46. 47 just came out, so I haven't read it yet. But this is a shoujo story about a girl who wants to become an actress for reasons. I love the series. That's why I'm collecting it and have volume 47. And along that, my standard, I buy these every year, is Yona of the Dawn, which I have volume 36, 35, and 37. These are the only volumes that came out this year because they have caught up to the manga. But yes, this is a shoujo fantasy series. My big purchase for the year besides Kami-sama Kiss is Welcome to the Ballroom. I rewatched the anime for like the third or fourth time this year and I was like, yes, this is the year I'm going to buy and read Welcome to the Ballroom because I have no hope for a second anime season and I want to know how this series ends. And the manga artist is back from their hiatus, so I have some hope of the manga actually getting some type of conclusion. But Welcome to the Ballroom is a sports manga and I've bought 1 through 11. 11 just came out this past year, like literally like in October or November. But yes, I've caught up to the series. I've read all the volumes and the only volume I can't get is 7. It is completely back ordered out of stock and I have no idea how I'm gonna get it because I cannot find it anywhere for any price. It is literally ridiculous. And the last mangas that I have to share are the mangas that I have bought and collected more as like sentimental pieces. So at the beginning of this year, I watched Blue Period, which is a coming of age story about a young man who decides he wants to be an artist and go to art school. And I really enjoyed the anime. I blew through the manga online. And so I decided to pick up the first volume as a commemorative piece. So I actually have a spreadsheet of all the mangas that I plan on collecting. I do read manga outside of anime. Like I will pick up manga that doesn't have an anime attached to it. I find myself more attached to series when I've seen them as animes, and that really gets me to pick up the series and collect them. But like I said, I have a spreadsheet of all the animes that I've watched and if they have mangas and if I'm going to collect them or not. And Blue Period is currently in my in-between period. I wanted the first volume because I blew through this series. I connected to just being in art school and all of that, but until the ending of the manga or the ending of the anime or whatever it is, until I know the ending, I will not buy the entire series. It is based on the ending. So some point I will go back and read through this manga again, keep up to date with the series, but I've been snubbed by manga before. I've been snubbed by anime before, and so I don't want to collect an entire series and not enjoy the ending. I don't want to waste my money on that, basically. I also bought Maid-sama the first and second volume. I've read Maid-sama online many a time. I've read through it a bunch, and I've watched the anime a ton. It's like a comfort anime. I know it's not for everybody. I know not everybody likes this series, but I do. It's comforting. Honestly, it's more my Ouran High School because I don't love Ouran High School as much as some people do. But yes, this is a comfort thing. I don't plan on buying the entire series because I don't need it, I don't think, but I wanted to buy this first volume for sentimental reasons to have on my shelf to be like, oh yeah, Maid-sama, I like Maid-sama. And then the next book I bought was Sweetness and Lightning, the first volume. This book was in holding status. Basically, I was like, I'm gonna buy the first volume, read it, see if I enjoy it, and continue with the entire series if I like it. I absolutely love the anime for this. It's about a teacher whose wife passed away and he's now trying to care and cook for his daughter and him learning how to cook, but I think that I like the anime better. The manga series is a lot more episodic than the anime. I think the anime was really focused on producing a clear character arc for the story for the 12 episodes that they were creating. I read this, I liked it, but Again, I was a little bit disappointed because I love the anime so much. I feel like this book focused less on Tsumugi and just a little bit less on the characters' emotional journeys because it was more like episodic, kind of humorous. It's cute. Again, it's obviously the inspiration for the anime, so it is good. But I think what I like is the anime. Like, my love for this series is from the anime, not from the manga. And just those slight differences, it's just slightly different enough that I don't think I want to collect and finish out the series. And with that, we have have Descending Stories Volume 1 and 2. This is an anime that wrecked me. It was just so good. I will say I'm a little worried about the series going out of print because it's an older series and you never see it in the stores. And so I've had a little bit of fire under my butt to read this series and collect them. But I will say, through the first 2 volumes, again, while they are good, they are not comparing to the anime of it. Descending Stories is a historical anime and manga series about a specific art style in Japan, which is called Rokugo, which is a performing storytelling style. And seeing that as an anime just works really well because you're hearing the stories told, you're seeing the depictions of it, the representation of it on the screen, and it's just a different experience seeing it as an anime than as a still manga without all of those effects like the music and the voice and a lot of the pictures. I don't want to say that this is in holding status still because I was planning on collecting it and reading it in its entirety, but I think I am going to read it online and see how it compares to the anime before I decide to collect the rest of the series, because while it's good, yes, I have been a little bit disappointed that it's not as good as the anime. But yes, those are all the books that I bought in the year of 2022. Those are also the ones that I've read and the ones that I haven't. So stay tuned for December and January, where I will be giving my reading stats, where I will be discussing some of these books, the ones I loved, the ones I didn't like, and where I will be discussing my 2023 reading plans. Scary, I know. But yeah, let me know what you bought this year. I feel like most of us just kind of block out if we buy a lot of books because we don't want to think about all the money that we spend and like how, you know, how much we bought and spent in a year. But like as a reader who reads over 100 books, I would say this is, you know, unless you're like a big, you know, how much we bought and spent in a year. But as a reader who reads 100 books, I would say this is, you know, unless you're like a big library or audiobook or ebook person, I would say maybe this is pretty standard, at least as an internet person who talks and does stuff with books a lot. I don't know, maybe I'm completely crazy, but you can let me know that. You can berate me in the comments, I guess, a little bit. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you guys later, and happy reading.